fish report. Hanging at the fish report. Hanging at the fish report. Hanging at the fish report. For your latest news in high school sports, tune in to the fish report. Don't need no bed, don't need no pull when you tune in to the fish report. Hanging at the fish report. Hanging at the fish report. You got Craig and TK and Heather D. Tune in at the fish report.
Coming to you live from Studio F in Russia, Ohio. It's the Fish Report Live Show with your hosts, Craig Fissinger and Ken Francis.
Tune in to the fish report.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Fish Report Live. I'm Craig Fissinger. That is Ken Francis. We're your hosts. Thanks for joining us back in our sound room tonight. It's TK and Heavy D, of course. We'll talk to them a little bit later in the show. And out in Studio R, Covey and Kearns are live this week. Can't wait to talk to them. Ken, another fun night on FRL, an exciting time of year.
Yes, it is, Craig. It's tournament time for the girls as they're going to be tipping it off this weekend. Boys are coming down to the final week of the regular season, Craig. You got the MAC championship still to be decided, the Shelby County championship, at least part of it still to be decided as the Russia Raiders have clinched their 5th consecutive Shelby County League championship already. But big game coming up with Fort Loramie Friday night, Craig, and a chance for the Redskins to not only bring themselves into the picture, but also the Anna Rockets at the same time. So big games on tap here coming up. And like you said, it's tournament time, and it's the middle of February, and it's just a lot of fun right now.
Yeah, it is tournament time, and the girls get started this Saturday. And speaking of which, we're going to be sitting down with a couple of those girls playing in the tournament this Saturday.
Yes, we are, Craig. Really looking forward to talking to Russia's 2 seniors. They've been great leaders on this team for all this year. They've been instrumental to Coach Andy Timmerman's success over the last couple years, and that's Cameo Wilson and Whitney Pleiman. Just tremendous kids, great basketball players, great students in the classroom, and really looking forward to the interview with them here in just a few short minutes.
All right, and speaking of the boys' action, you mentioned that big game on Friday night. That is the subject of tonight's poll question.
Well, it's a pretty simple one for our listeners tonight, Craig, and we're going to ask them, who do you feel wins Friday night's Shelby County League showdown between the Fort Loramie Redskins and the Russia Raiders? Is it Fort Loramie or is it Russia? The game, of course, is at Russia's Claire C. Nouveau Gymnasium this time. Loramie got the win the first time around. The game played at Fort Loramie, so we'll see what happens this Friday night. Pick one of the teams. We'll view the results at the end of the show.
The only thing we know for sure, like you said, is that Russia already has a share of that league championship. We'll just see if Loramie gets in on that Friday night as well. And if you're watching us on the Fish Report Live page on your computer or your phone, you can scroll down, help us answer tonight's poll question, and check the results. If you're watching us on NK Telco, TK is going to have those results for you at the end of the show. All right, let's get things started, Ken. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but we're going to be wrapping up SCAL play this Friday. So let's take a look at those standings and see what's left to play for.
Well, like I said just shortly before, the Russia Raiders, Craig, sitting atop the Shelby County League standings at 10-1. Coach Cardonier's team, they've got it done this year. They've been phenomenal in league games. They've had some big wins. They had 2 big wins over Anna earlier in the year. And Fort Loramie and Anna, speaking of them too, Craig, they're right behind the Raiders, just a game behind Russia Loramie, the big game Friday night. And, Anna's got they got to take on Farallon. The game is at Anna over there in the launching pad. And so I like the Rockets over there in that game to hold serve and at least get to 10-2 for them. The Russia Loramie game, it's going to be a good one, Craig. A lot of people, a lot of interest in that game. The place is going to be packed. I know the doors are opening at 5:30 already. No pre-sale tickets, so if you're going to that game, you better get there early, because if you show up by 6:15, I reckon you probably won't be getting a seat. You might be watching it in the Commons with a whole bunch of other people.
Well, let's talk about that Russia Loramie game a little bit. A lot of people are going to be looking at either on the scoreboard or going to be there in person watching the game live. But let me ask you, people from outside of those 2 schools, Russia kind of struggles against Houston on Monday night in a league game it seems like Russia should have rolled in. And then, Loramie loses to Anna last Saturday night. Are both these teams kind of backing into that championship?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that a bit, Craig. I think, first of all, I'm going to give Houston some credit. Monday night, Houston played pretty well. Maybe Russia was slightly looking past Houston, but I don't think Coach Cardano would let his team do that. I think they were ready for Houston. I think, honestly, it just came down to the fact that Houston played pretty well. And, Fort Loramie losing to Anna, it's all about matchups. And Anna and Fort Loramie, I think when you look at those two teams, I think Anna on paper has the edge when it comes to the matchup between Anna and Fort Loramie. I think Russia matches up very well with Anna, thus the Raiders beating the Rockets both times this season, and both times were very close. I think it's just a very good matchups between the two teams. And, we're going to see what happens Friday night between Russia and Fort Loramie, but by no means is either team backing into it. Fort Loramie was our preseason pick. I think Coach Cardano has done a tremendous job this year of keeping the Raiders prepared and keeping them focused and winning the games that have been important. And they've done just that. I think they're a surprise to everybody in the Shelby County League that the Raiders have clinched their 5th consecutive league title.
Okay, well, I wasn't suggesting that they were backing it. I'm just kind of asking that question. If someone out there maybe is thinking that. I know one game that they certainly earned was Friday night taking on Fairlawn. I think one big reason for that win Friday night over at the Hangar was that Russia has a deep bench. They played 9 guys in that game compared to Fairlawn basically just playing 6 all night. So I think that bench is to Russia's benefit. But let's talk about the Loramie bench too. How do they do for a bench, or can you compare that to Russia at all?
Well, I think they got a very comparable bench to the Raiders. I think Loramie's got a deep bench as well. Agree, Russia's got a very good bench. They go 9 deep. I think Fort Loramie will go 8 or 9 deep as well. That'll really come into play, especially with the adrenaline flowing. A lot of times in a big game like this, you're going to see a key player maybe on one of these two teams pick up a couple early fouls, and there might be more than one player get into a little bit of early foul trouble, Craig. A lot of adrenaline pumping and packed house, and look for the bench to be very key for both teams in that game Friday night.
All right, the benches will be key, and like you said, a lot of adrenaline flowing. It's going to be a lot of motivation, too, because Fort Loramie hasn't won at Russia since December 14th, 2012, so a little motivation for them. And as we said, Russia's won the last 4 SCAL championships outright. They do have a share of this 5th one, but I'm sure they want to win that one outright as well, so some motivation for the Raiders as well.
Absolutely, Craig. Coach Cardano, he's going to have them jacked up. The fans are going to be into it, but a lot of motivation, like you said, for the Raiders. Be a big win going into the tournament. They've got Marion Local on Saturday night, and I can tell you right now they're not worried the least bit about the Flyers on Saturday night. They're focusing on the Redskins as Fort Loramie is focusing on the Raiders for that game on Friday.
All right, and you mentioned tournament. Last week we started talking about tournament. That's because the tournament draw was this past Sunday. We asked you for the top 4 seeds, and of course you nailed them. You nailed them. I think maybe they flip-flopped Triad and Jackson Center there a little bit, but let's look at those brackets, see what came out on Sunday, and of course we're interested in Piqua over there, that Division 4 Piqua upper and lower. Let's start out with the upper, Ken, and what do we got there?
Well, when Fort Loramie went up on the board, they went down. So, of course, all the next 5 best teams or the next highest seeds, everybody ran away from the Redskins. And Fort Loramie's got a great team, so the Raiders went opposite the Loramie. They're the 2 seed. Triad and Jackson Center and Fairlawn all followed suit. So very interesting section. I think Pleiman's a team there that's a lot of people don't know a whole lot about the Cavaliers. They've got a couple new players since the second half of the season started. I don't know a whole lot about them. I've seen Covington play. Jackson Center, obviously, I know a lot about. Miss-Sinnwell Valley, coached by Tim Bargy, they're going to be very well prepared. And then you got Triad, the team there. We talked about last week that they've got their backcourt together average 42 points a game. So I look for that to be a very high-scoring game down there in the bottom half of that bracket.
Yeah, we hear a lot about the up north and the tough bracket up there, that Walpock district or whatever. I think that Piqua Division 4 the Piqua 1 bracket there is as tough as it gets. I mean, you've got some good teams there. You talked about Triad last week. We know what Jackson Center can do. They're a load for anybody. Miss-Sinnwell Valley, Russia, Pleiman. I think that's going to be very interesting. But let's go to the bottom of the bracket too, Ken, and look at Piqua 2 and what do we got setting up down there?
Well, the interesting thing about this bracket, Craig, if you remember our very first show of the year when we talked boys basketball, I said the powerhouse in the area is going to be Fort Loramie. My sleeper team Who was my sleeper team? You remember?
I don't remember.
It was the Ansonia Running Animals.
That's right. That's
okay,
right.
And I'm looking already on a sectional final there between Fort Loramie and Ansonia. I think Fort Loramie gets out of this sectional. They got a really good team. But, boy, if there's one team there that could throw a scare into the Redskins, that would be Ansonia. I've seen them play. They're athletic. They can fill it up. They can shoot themselves in a game, or they can shoot themselves out of a game really quick. So, but look for the Redskins to get out of the Pickle sectional in the lower half of that bracket.
All right, good stuff there, Kenny. You know, one more thing. We always like to talk about that SCAL recognition that comes out at the end of the season. The Old County usually gets announced sometime during tournament there. I want to ask you, who you Player of the Year? Who you picking for Player of the Year? Got any ideas on that?
Player of the Year, Craig, hands down, Wyatt Bentzman. He's led the Anna Rockets in scoring all year. They've had a tremendous season. I think he's a phenomenal talent. He makes everybody on his team a lot better. He's averaging 18, 19 points a game, I believe it is. So Wyatt Bentzman, hand down, Player of the Year. Look for Dylan Braun. He's had a great year over there for the Redskins. And the big man in the paint for the Redskins, you know, Tyler Siegel, you know, not only does he do it on the offensive end, but great player defensively, makes everybody alter a lot of shots. So those are my top three picks, and a lot of great athletes in the county, Craig. But I think it's going to be Wyatt Bentzman is going to be your Player of the Year.
Well, nice call with that one. I know our own Covey actually picked that one about mid-season. He said that he thought Wyatt Bentzman was a front runner for that Player of the Year. But let me ask you here, doesn't that Player of the Year have to come from the top team in the county? So let's say Arooshie is in first right now. Shouldn't that come from Arooshie?
Well, the history proves absolutely not. I know you can go back several years. Craig Arooshie's won the league now, like I said, 5 consecutive years. The 4 previous years, I know 4 years ago it didn't. 3 years ago I believe it did. And so, no, there's no rhyme or reason to who gets that Player of the Year.
Of course, Nathan Lessing won it last year, and they finished second, I believe, in the SCAL. So, all right, good stuff there. And we're going to take a short break, but stay right there because when we come back, we're going to talk some girls basketball, including that interview with those 2 Arooshie seniors.
In the motherland, you were born with heart, raised on pride. This vinegar runs through your bloodline. Oh, loaded, bruised, and slain. Oh, pride in this name. Skies run deep within this blue, false devised by foolish views. Religious divide among the may create civil war on my family land. Oh, hurt and bruised and slain. Oh, pride in this name.
And welcome back to the second half of Fish Report Live. Before the break, we were talking boys basketball. Now we're going to change gears and talk a little girls basketball. And we started out our winter sports season, if you remember, the broadcast on FRL in late November. Our first interview was with the head coach of the Arooshie Raiders, Andy Timmerman. And a follow-up to that, last night we sat down with the 2 Arooshie seniors on the team, Cameo Wilson and Whitney Pleiman. We asked the girls about their regular season, the tournament trail coming up starting on Saturday, and what they wanted to be remembered by Raider fans. Here's our report. The Russia girls basketball team had another outstanding regular season, finishing with an overall record of 17-5, including 10-2 in the Shelby County Athletic League. The Lady Raiders started the year winning their first 8 games, highlighted by an opening night victory over Division I Sydney, an overtime thriller against Newton, and a 48-46 slugfest versus league foe Anna. When 2018 rolled around, Russia continued their solid play, winning 9 of 12 games, including big victories over Division II St. Mary's, cross-county conference power Covington, and a regular season finale versus arch-rival Fort Laramie. Leading the Lady Raiders, both in the locker room and on the floor, are lone seniors Cameo Wilson and Whitney Pleiman. Fresh off their volleyball season last fall that ended in the regional tournament, both seniors have brought that same energy and talent to the basketball floor. As they prepare for the start of the tournament season, we sat down with the seniors to reflect on the regular season and the tournament trail ahead. Fish Report Live here at Russia Local School with Lady Raider senior basketball stars Cameo Wilson and Whitney Pleiman. And girls, congratulations on a great regular season, one that ended just a little less than a week ago this past Thursday. You girls walked off the floor with a victory over Fort Laramie. Let's talk about emotions a little bit. Cameo, what was it like for you coming off that floor for the last time?
It was definitely hard because I can't say I was completely happy with how I played, but a win against Laramie on your last night is always fun, especially getting to do it 2 seasons in a row.
And Whitney, from what I understand, you almost didn't go out your senior year, so what was that about, and are you glad you did?
Yes, that is true. Playing on a bigger JO team, it would have been hard, but looking at the numbers, I definitely think that I shouldn't have been selfish, and I should have just did it for the people around me, and I am glad that I did it. I'm having a lot of fun. All
right, well, let's talk about volleyball a little bit. You girls not only being stars on the basketball team, you're stars on the volleyball team, led the Russia Raiders to a regional tournament this past fall. You know, coming into this basketball season, I mean, Whitney, does it get a little busy going from volleyball to basketball? What's your year like?
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. I'm in the gym 7 days a week, sometimes 2 times a day. But, I mean, in the end, I know that in a few weeks I'm going to miss this, so I just keep pushing through.
And Cammy, you came out of the volleyball season, had an injury, and went into your basketball season with a little bit of troubles, I guess, with the injury. Was that frustrating for you?
Yeah, it was really hard because I already lost my summer from being able to improve my game, and just getting to see everyone else getting to play. It was really hard not getting to go out there and play on the court.
Well, let's talk about this season a little bit, or this team a little bit, Whitney. And you know, this is a team that not only has you and Cameo as senior leaders, but you also have a good mix of underclassmen as well.
Yeah, I think the variety in age is great. Coming in as a freshman, I always looked up to the upperclassmen, so I know that they look up to us, and I mean, I learn things from them every day.
All right. And, you know, this season you certainly had your shares of peaks and valleys, Cameo. You know, I think you started out on an 8-game winning streak, had a couple losses to some good schools there in Versailles and Minster. Might have had another double loss there, I think, against Tri-Village and Anna. But as we said, ended the season with that big win against Laramie. You know, what was it like, I guess, as a senior? Do you handle those peaks and valleys a little bit differently than you would if you, say, were a sophomore or junior?
It's definitely difficult to go through back-to-back losses because you want to, after a loss, you want to get back into it and get wins. But I think we handled it well and came back stronger, especially with that win against Laramie.
Let's talk about tournament a little bit. You know, you girls are the first game on Saturday. You lead things off at noon there, taking on Farrell and over there at Sydney. Any nerves as a senior, or, you know, did Coach give you any advice heading into this game?
Definitely have nerves because obviously at this point any game can be our last, and that's scary to think about. And Coach actually just said the other night that you can't go into any game expecting a win because you never know what they're going to run. They could run 4 corners the whole game and be the only team that scores.
Absolutely. You know, and Whitney, that Sydney floor is certainly one you're familiar with. You've been on there a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, I think that we're definitely used to the size, like how much people it can hold and just the rims and everything, so.
All right, and one thing you have to remember, Whitney, I guess, is this, you know, you girls, I don't think play any spring sports, do you? No. So, you know, this any day could be your last day in the blue and gold. How does that hit you?
It definitely hits me more and more every day as season's getting shorter, but I usually leave everything out on the court, so if I give it my all, it's just I'm more than privileged to have the best 4 years of competitive and hard work and playing with some of my best friends.
All right, and Cameo, I know everyone usually likes to be remembered for something by the time they graduate. What would you like to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered as the girl that left it all on the court and didn't leave anything behind, and someone that the little kids can look up to want to be like when they play.
All right, in just a few short months, you'll be graduating from Russia. Any plans for after high school? Cameo.
I'm planning on going to University of Toledo, majoring in middle school education.
All right, how about you, Whitney?
I plan to play volleyball at Edison and major in criminal justice.
All right, girls, well, great stuff there. Listen, thanks for taking time to join us tonight. Congratulations again on a great regular season, and best of luck down the tournament trail.
Thank you.
And that was Russia seniors Cameo Wilson and Whitney Pleiman. A lot of fun to talk to them. Want to go out to the sound room, though, and talk to the guys out there because they've been following this Lady Raiders team all season long, been following girls basketball all season long. And I want to ask Daniel first. I know, you playing on the varsity boys team. You have a good sense for this, but what was that victory like last Thursday against those Laramie Redskins? What does that do for their confidence last time on their home floor and heading into tournament?
That was great, obviously, for the two senior leaders, Whitney and Cameo, their last home game, beating Laramie just like they did in their volleyball season last fall. It's a huge confidence booster going into with a big win like that, going into tournament. And with their seed draw, I see them with that kind of momentum, having a great run in tournament, going to districts, maybe even regionals. And it just really gives the confidence to all the girls around them. I know the last time they played Laramie, they had struggle offensively and defensively. So beating a good team like that going into tournament can really give a spark for a team like that.
Yeah, definitely with it being senior night, the team's going to be pumped up. The league title's out of contention, so that might take the wind out of some sales players, but definitely when you're playing your arch rival, you really want to be amped up for the game, and that's what the Lady Raiders did. It was their best offensive performance, I think, of the season, in my opinion, against a solid quality defense that Laramie's had all year. They got anything they wanted on the inside. They exploited mismatches, and that's ultimately what led them to get that big 12-point victory.
And guys, Cameo and Whitney have been a big part of this program now for a number of years, but they actually probably are, I don't know the exact stats, but they're not really the leading scorers of the team. You look at girls like Larissa Poling and Jenica Donier, girls like that have been doing the bulk of the scoring this year. But how important is it for those seniors, even though they're not the leading scorers, to be the leader of that team?
Well, Cameo Wilson, first off, she knows her role, and she puts in about 6 to 8 points a game. Does her job for the Lady Raiders in the starting lineup. Whitney Pleiman, ball hawking perimeter defender, brings the ball up the floor. She's been doing that for the past couple years. She worked off really well with Tiffany Hatcher this year and kind of took over as the captain of the defense this year and has done a really great job at that.
Yeah, Cameo offensively, she looks to score, but also on the other side, if girls are looking to double over, she looks for Larissa as well because I know the two big girls underneath, Cameo and Larissa, so they really work off each other really well. And also Whitney, she doesn't necessarily look to score that well, but she looks for her teammates also to get, backdoor cuts, and she's really good with the ball. And she's great at point guard the last 2 years, and also, like you said, defending. She does a phenomenal job on the defensive end.
That's good stuff there, guys. Let me ask you one other question here before we let you go. And, briefly in the first part of the show, I talked about the Player of the Year candidates for the boys team. Let me ask you guys. Let's talk about the girls a little bit here. Covey, and then we'll go to Kearns. Who are your top 2 or 3 girl candidates for Player of the Year?
Well, my Player of the Year is going to be Bakken senior Sarah Bergman. She's nearly averaging 14 points a game, leading the league in scoring. I think typically in a lot of years, a lot of the county Player of the Years have come from teams that haven't won league. I think kind of like the guys. And that's how I think it should be. County Player of the Year needs to be defined as the best player in the league. And I think this league's really balanced. Laramie's the league champs, but they have a lot of balanced talent. I know Russia can certainly throw Jenna Cardonier and Larissa Poling in the mix. Anna can throw Macy Hulskamp. Jackson Center can throw in Olivia Clark. And even Bakkens can also throw in Paige Lane. But if I looked who's been the best statistical player this year and who's been the most valuable to their team, I'm going to have to go with Sarah Bergman. And I think right behind you're going to have Olivia Clark and probably Jenna Cardonier or Larissa Poling.
I'm going to go ahead and take your Player of the Year as Olivia Clark. I know she was your second, but I think she gives the best value in the whole league with the way Jackson Center is. I know offensively, she is their main girl. She's their go-to girl. If they are in a close game, it's going to be because of her, and also defensively as well. It showed in that Fort Laramie game. I know it was pretty close, and she came out with an injury in the third quarter, and Laramie ran away with it. So that just shows how important she is for the Jackson Center Tigers. And I'd also say Sarah Bergman and Larissa Poling are the two that could also be Player of the Year.
Well, I agree with you on those picks, guys, and I agree. I kind of, if I'm a coach, I kind of stand them up in a gymnasium. I say, okay, I'm going to pick an open gym team here. Who's going to be my first pick, my second pick, and so on down the line. So I agree with you, Kobe. There should go to the best athletic basketball talent in the league. Doesn't necessarily need to go to the league champion.
All right, good stuff, guys, and thanks for that report. Ken, let's take a quick look at those girls' brackets. I know we looked at them here the other week, but let's start out there with that Sydney Upper again, and what do we got going on there starting this Saturday?
Well, when we look at the Sydney Upper, Rushie's going to roll their first game there over Fairlawn, and then most likely again over Mississinawa Valley. I think the Raiders got a nice, easy trail there to get to the sectional finals. The lower half of that bracket, Mechanicsburg-Botkins, very interesting first-round matchup there. I think that's going to be a great game. I think the winner of that game gets past Riverside, takes on the Raiders in the sectional finals. I like Rushie, of course, but they're going to get a nice challenge from either Mechanicsburg or Botkins.
All right, and real quickly, let's check out that Sydney Lower. What do we have there?
Well, when you look at the Sydney Lower, Craig, I like the Fort Loramie Redskins basically moving out to the sectional finals very easily. Jackson Center most likely will be playing the Redskins in the sectional final. Look for Fort Loramie again to win that game and get out of this sectional. When you look at Loramie's trail, Craig, I feel they got the much easier path down the tournament trail. They've got a much easier district championship game where if Rushie would get out, they would have to take on a very talented Tri-Village team. And then when you go into the regional semifinal, the Redskins, again, with the easier game because Rushie would be paired up against the winner coming from the north, which most likely will be the Minster Wildcats.
All right, well, let me go back then, and if we could do it all over again, let me throw this by you. How about Rushie jumping in as the number 2 seed, jumping in there with Loramie in their bracket? Would that have made any sense?
Well, I think if the drawing was after the last Rushie-Loramie game, I would not have been surprised at all to see Coach Timmerman do that, and explain to Coach Siegel, say, hey, I respect your program. I got all the respect in the world for you as a coach and for your team, but I'm going to tell you, I would much rather take my chances playing you in the sectional finals and then having 2 easier games, my next 2, than having to get out of the sectional and then have to take on a Tri-Village team that has already beat up on me pretty good, and then if you would happen to get by them, take on a Minster Wildcat team that is extremely talented.
Yeah.
So I think if that tournament draw was a week or 2 later, I think you would have seen the 1 and 2 seeds in the same sectional.
Interesting stuff, that's for sure. All right, well, let's check in with the sound room and the guys back there. Guys, we've been talking a lot of Rushie-Loramie boys basketball tonight. I know you'll be in the house for that one. What are you guys looking forward to the most?
Well, I got a couple things. Number one are both student sections. Loramie always brings a student section. Somebody in the crowd's going to have the D in the fence, and they're going to be shaking the defense sign the whole time. That's great. Rushie's got their student section. But you move down to the south side of the gym, and you got the K through 6 student section for Rushie. They can raise the roof down there themselves. They bring a pretty good bark to the game. The other thing I like, looking forward to, is Coach Britton. Call him the man in black. He's pretty animated on the sidelines. See him down on one knee, see him down on all fours, up and down the sideline, getting it on. So, I think he's brings a lot to the Fort Loramie program. Again, the man in black, and I think he's going to I enjoyed just watching him move around the sideline and keep it going.
Well, if he's watching us tonight, he might just wear red on Friday night with those kind of comments.
He might. I enjoy watching him. He's a good guy.
What about you, TK? What are you looking forward to?
Just looking forward to the lively crowd. It's always a good place to be on a Friday night as the Rushie Gymnasium, especially on a SCAL matchup like it's going to be. It's always full, and that's one of the louder gyms because it's a little bit smaller. Brings a lot to the boys on the court. Either way, home team or the visitors, both of them, fans are right on top of them, and they got to all get really pumped up with a crowd like that. So that'll be fun to watch and watch some people kind of losing their minds every once in a while.
Well, I agree with that, and you got to remember there's a lot of in-laws across the stands from each other because there's over the years there's been a lot of Rushie Fort Loramie breeding that went on. So that always adds some extra excitement onto the game.
Yeah.
All right, guys, of course, the big question at the beginning of the night is who's going to win that game. So what do you got for the poll question results?
Well, the poll question looks like it goes to our home crowd and home team. 78% are picking the home team, Rushi Raiders, to pull out a victory this Friday night.
Maybe a little home cooking there.
Well, that would be a great result there. But, we know it's going to be a good game. Both teams got lots of talent, and, both teams well coached. So it's going to be exciting. The fans are going to bring a lot of energy. The kids are going to bring energy, the players, the coaches. So get there early, folks, if you're planning to attend, because I can tell you, if you're not there early, you're going to be sitting in the Commons or maybe down the hallway even somewhere. I'm not sure where you're going to sit, but most likely won't be in Claire Senior Gymnasium if you get there too late.
All right, great stuff, guys, and thanks for that. And I'm ready to go, Ken. I'm ready to play.
I'm ready.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. I do want to say special thanks to our guests, Rushi Seniors, Cameo Wilson, and Whitney Pleiman. Ken and I and the crew will all be back again next week, same time, same place. Until then, have a great rest of the week, and good night, everyone.
Hanging at the fishing pond, hanging at the fishing pond, hanging at the fishing pond, hanging at the fishing pond. For your latest news and high school sports, tune in to the fishing pond. Don't need no bed, don't need no pole when you tune in to the fishing pond, hanging at the fishing pond.